All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Renters. We're coming at you with a little bit different format this time. As you can see, we're not in the field, we're in the studio, but it's because we're going to be here with a special guest, my friend Sean from the American Hunting Lease Association and Base Camp Leasing. So you've been watching the series and you've gotten this far. Hopefully you're interested in finding a deer hunting lease, and maybe you've even found some prospective leases. But now this is probably the most important part, and it's how to proceed with actually getting into that lease the right way, with the right agreement, the right insurance, and all those little nuts and bolts that's going to make sure you have a good experience. So hopefully you enjoy this episode. Sean, what's going on, man?
Not a lot. It's 95 degrees here today, so I'm staying in.
So we've been rolling with this series now for several weeks. We've covered a whole bunch of different topics all around what it takes to get into a deer hunting lease. But with this conversation with you here today, I want to talk about the nuts and bolts with some of the formalities. So I guess let's start out with a little introduction here. Familiarize everybody with you, what you do, what your affiliation is with those two outfits.
A good friend of mine owns Base Camp Leasing, and he started that company back in 2099. And so I became an agent for Base Camp in 2012. And then after a couple of years, he said, "Hey, I'm kind of starting this different service. What do you think about coming to run it?" And I was like, I really like the fire department. So I did both for 2 years. Then it was obvious that I could really make an impact on the hunting industry in this role. Now I get to talk with hunters and landowners, a lot of landowners, and that's just very satisfying to me. So Base Camp Leasing is more of a broker. If you're looking to, I always use this analogy. Base Camp Leasing is kind of like a car lot, big car lot. You can go to their website and you can see all the leases that they have, and they've already contacted landowners. They're already enrolled. You can pick out with the one you want. You can go inspect it, test drive it, and when you come back, you say, "Yeah, we want this one." You can put a deposit down, and away you go. And Base Camp takes care of all of that. The American Hunting Lease Association, or AHLA, is more of a do-it-yourselfer. If you already know the landowner, or you've already worked out a deal on the front porch somewhere, fantastic. What do you need? Well, you need to protect yourself and the landowner with liability coverage. You need a lease agreement, those type of things. I know that's what we're going to get into, but so that's kind of the difference between both companies, and they are two separate companies completely.
One of the things I thought was pretty interesting was looking at some of the history. You had sent me a really good ebook that you guys put out, and frankly, your 18-page ebook, I read it cover to cover yesterday before we met here. And honestly, I didn't know what I was going to get from it, but it was really well done. And one of the cool parts about it was you guys actually had some history in there about hunting leases and kind of how it all started back in the day. And something you had in there that I thought was interesting, it said, "We believe private landowners hold the keys literally and figuratively to the future of hunting in the United States." That's a pretty compelling statement, especially when you look at everything that's going on with public lands right now. So what do you guys mean by that?
Well, I think private land access is the key to a quality experience, okay? And I've hunted public land. I love public land. There is plenty of public land to hunt. So I'm not saying you shouldn't hunt public land. But those 100, especially here in the Midwest, but those 150 to 250 acre parcels here hold quality deer, quality habitat, and if you can get exclusive access to that piece of ground, then I think that's where hunting will be able to grow. And so, yeah, if you're a private landowner and you're not allowing hunting, then I want to have a word with you, because one, it is an American heritage, it's part of our heritage, and two, you'll be doing an incredible service to the hunting industry and to kids that want to hunt. So yeah, they do hold the keys literally because they have the keys to the gate, and figuratively, if they'll just allow access and they allow us to protect them, I think that's how hunting is going to flourish.
When you talk about people being able to have quality experiences, and especially their first exposure to hunting out there, like you're talking about, being able to go out there to be able to see more animals than people. I mean, that's what a lot of us gauge the quality of a hunting experience off of, is encounters with wildlife. I don't go hunting to see more people. I'm trying to get away from people. I want to see wildlife. So, yeah, those are some really good points you made there. And I thought it was interesting reading through that ebook. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might have my facts a little bit twisted up here, but you guys said, I think in the 1930s is where you can trace the roots of these hunting leases back to, with like trappers in Texas who needed more land to acquire more furs and pelts to be able to sell. So they're like, hey, I can still make this profitable if we can cut a deal here, and I'll pay you a little bit to let me on your land, but I need more land to go trap stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly where. And listen, there's not a lot of people looking into or researching the history of hunting leases in our country. So, our two companies probably put more hunters afield on private land than just about any two companies you could think of. So we actually, somebody called us thought leaders a year or two ago, and I think that's a little pretentious and a little presumptuous, but at the same time, nobody else is doing this. So we did look into it. We've done the research, and yeah, that's it. You summed it up exactly right. When the American Hunting Lease Association launched, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, by far our biggest customers at that time. Now it's kind of, morphed and grown into the Midwest and especially out east. But so yeah, then those other states and other landowners, timber companies, not only did they start allowing leasing, they started having their own leasing programs, and they're still around today. There are hunt clubs in the South, 100 years old. And, great grandparents belong to this hunt club. And now the generations down the line, they still belong to the same hunt club, hunting the same ground. It's pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
You're starting to see more of that type of stuff. And just like everything else, no different than, like, I'm a big turkey hunter. And a lot of times I have to explain to newer turkey hunters or people who aren't as crazy about it as me, about how, like, the turkey hunting culture is so much more deeply embedded in those southern turkey hunters because they've had turkey hunting for longer. They've had turkeys, huntable populations of turkeys for longer. So, like, my grandpa never even saw a wild turkey while he was alive, whereas someone down south, their great grandpa might have hunted wild turkeys. But it's kind of a parallel to what we're talking about here with hunting leases and hunt clubs. Like, it makes sense that it's the core of it kind of started down there. Now it's branching out, and there's no telling where it's going to go over the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years. So I guess that kind of leads me to the next part of the conversation. I think it's important to lay the groundwork for all this. And that is, what does the hunting lease landscape and market look like right now? So
I think to start with, I would say that just using the simplest term, supply and demand for ground to have a hunting lease on is exponentially greater than the supply right now. You see on Basecamp Leasing site and others, they put out new leases and they're gone. They take them. Guys for taking them sight unseen sometimes. They're just, we'll take that one. It's 100 acres in a county, in a state that I know we can get to, we can get tags in, we'll just take it. And so that tells me right there that it's growing like crazy and healthy. Is there a ceiling? I'm sure there is, but I don't think we're even close to it yet. I will have to wait and see how that goes. I think there's a lot of land being hunted for free, which is a great thing. Landowners that just share access. As those hunters and those landowners begin to age out, people are going to be forced with a decision. Do we keep this land and sell it? Or do we keep it or do we sell it? And one of the ways they can keep it is to start generating revenue off of it. And we see this a lot. I talk to landowners all the time who have inherited mom and dad's farm in the Midwest. We now live in Florida, also a great hunting state, by the way. California, we live out west somewhere. We got this 200 acres in Illinois, and I don't know what to do with it. So yeah, we can get it leased. Or somebody can lease it. And it doesn't take a lot. If you put up any kind of post on social media, you're going to have, it says, I want to lease this family farm. People already know where that family farm is and they want to hunt it and they'll be willing to pay for it. That's just a fact. The costs, it's like anything else. You want to play golf on a city course, pay $30 for 18 holes. or you can play at a private club somewhere that's just a better course. You're going to pay a lot more. So location, location, location. Somewhere in, I'll choose the Midwest, Missouri to Ohio, Tennessee to Wisconsin. Quality habitat, diverse, over 100, 150 acres, you're probably looking in the $50 an acre range, if it's all huntable. And that's another term we've kind of coined, and I'll explain that in a second. The low end, you can find a landowner on your own and say, hey, I'll give you 25 an acre. Because they might understand not only the historical importance of what they're doing, but they want people on their ground. They want the game managed. There's so much more than just the money. And I know the money's important to the landowners and the hunters. I get that. I am not discounting that at all. But man, there is a real element here of pride and things like that landowners are going to feel good about. So I'd say somewhere in the $20 an acre to $50 an acre range is where most leases in the Midwest are going to fall. South, it's a little cheaper. Northeast, it's probably about the same. So yeah, that's basically what it's going to cost you for a good hunting lease.
Let's talk about types of quote unquote hunting leases. You kind of got some that are still handshake deals where there may be a service, maybe you help some of the kind of the cliche that people use is I'll help them fix fence or whatever in exchange. I don't know how many people actually end up doing that.
Yeah.
But maybe you're helping them shovel manure out of their barn or whatever it might be. So there's kind of like a handshake deal where maybe you trade some kind of service, or maybe there's more of just a casual cash deal. You toss them a couple $100 or whatever it might be. And then you've got the more formal way of doing it, which I think both you and I could agree that that's really the ideal scenario for a number of reasons. So getting into that, we got two parties. We got the landowner, and then we've got the hunter or the renter. And I know that you guys were very careful going back to that ebook and the terminology that is used to describe. It's not actually a hunting lease. It's a
license. So what you're actually doing is you're leasing access. And I could go on for this for an hour, so please stop me, and I'll try not to ramble on. So you're not leasing the land. Now, that's a traditional term, and I'm not suggesting anybody change that. You're not leasing the land. You're leasing access to the land, okay? So you have no rights to the land. You can't go in and dig for minerals, or you have no rights of tenancy. You can't live there unless the landowner says it's okay. So you're only doing that. On the lease agreement that we have, it's actually called a hunting license and agreement to access. So that's the legal term. And we are careful about that because people are going to use the traditional terms. We get that. But when you start exchanging money for access or money for anything, communication has to be clear. And both sides, both parties have agreed to certain aspects of this hunting lease or the arrangement, and that all needs to just be put down on paper. That's all. It's very clear. We have some that write on the back of a napkin, I'm sure. I don't suggest that. And the fact of the matter is, if you used American Hunting Lease for your license or for your coverage, for your insurance, you can use our hunting lease agreement for no charge. And it's customizable. You pull up your account online and you can put in the state, the dates, the price. You can ride ATVs, but only for hunting purposes. You can camp on just the weekends, all those things. Your landowner puts that in. You can use that for no charge, and then you have an attorney-approved contract between two parties. Everybody signs it, and then there's no confusion in November when you go out there to hunt and they're removing all the trees. They're having their woods logged. That's not good. And so you want all that stuff spelled out in advance so that there's no miscommunication.
Yeah, that's really, in my eyes, that's the biggest benefit for both parties, is just laying everything out there clearly on the table, so you're not going to run into any conflicts. Both parties know what to expect. When you do handshake deals or when you don't have any sort of written agreement, it could end up being a bad situation real quickly where people get salty, or you get kicked off and you got 20 stands out there that they're not going to let you go retrieve, then you might have to get authorities involved. I mean, there's a lot of different ways it can go sideways. And just like any other transactional business relationship, it's important to have some sort of document to formalize things. And that also, I think, makes it easier to have, like, taking it to the next level. If you want to have a relationship with the landowner or vice versa, the landowner with the renter, that goes beyond just a business arrangement where you could actually potentially become friends or whatever over time, like that kind of just like clears the air. Like you both know what to expect. And so you're not going to cross boundaries unknowingly. And then that's going to just make it a lot easier to even build further on the relationship, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, that's one of the hidden benefits is the relationships that you create, not just with your buddies that are hunting, but with the landowner and the neighbors, all those things. As hunters, we're very like ultra competitive. We all love the same thing, but don't you dare set foot across that fence and don't set up a tree stand on the fence. The landowner, especially one that lives on the farm, oh my gosh, go up and share some, cup of coffee or just knock on the door, ask them how they're doing. Because sooner or later, they're going to say, yeah, you ought to see this 12.170 that comes out under that oak tree every third night. That's where I need to be, right? They live there. They see the deer. They're the best information you can get sometimes is what's going on there. And then they'll do they're not going to have family reunions in October, and they're not going to be cutting the grass as when you're in a stand, all those type of things. They understand. There's also a lot of responsibility on the hunters. We talk a lot about the landowners. The hunters, when you have a lease agreement, you say these 4 people will be hunting on your property, and that's it. It's exclusive. Now, we do make exceptions for kids because we want kids to be able to go hunting. So they don't have to be on the lease, or you can just list them. But when you're a hunter and all of a sudden, I let my buddy bring a friend, they're not on the lease agreement. And that means they're not covered by the liability insurance. So it's a two-way street. Everybody just needs to be respectful of what you agreed to. And man, you can have a years-long experience and you can actually manage someone's farm like it's yours.
Yeah, so that agreement, we don't have to go over everything that might be in there. And I know, if people sign up for a free account, they can actually get access to that agreement, that template that you're talking about. You can see what's in that template, but you can also add to it. So I guess just real quick, like generally, what is covered in just kind of your standard lease agreement? Like what are people signing?
Okay, so real quick, the length of the lease, July 8th to July 8th of 2026, $3,500 to hunt the 140 acres in Park County, Indiana, owned by John Landowner. Here are the miscellaneous rules, and it's also exclusive access. I'm not going to go out there and your nephews aren't going to be hunting. Only our party can hunt. And that's a big part of the hunting lease. It's just our party. And then the miscellaneous things are things like, can I use ATVs? Can we park a camper out there? Can I plant food plots? Screw in steps. The Amish landowners like to say no Sunday hunting. That's a tough one. But when we've talked to them, we say, how about no Sunday hunting within 500 yards of your home? And they're usually agreeable to that. So all those things just need to be worked out in advance. And, like I said, they almost always are. And then once they're worked out and agreed to, there's almost never a problem. Very, very few times is there a problem.
What would happen, for instance, and maybe it's just, situational, but like the reference I gave earlier, like what if all of a sudden, for some reason, a landowner gets weird and says, no, you can't come on here anymore. And all your stuff is out there. You got stands out there, whatever. How does this actually protect the hunter? And I guess on the flip side, how does it protect the landowner?
Well, the lease agreement itself is the one that we use. The one that I showed you there is a professionally drafted, attorney-approved document. It's a contract is what it is. So it is 100% binding. If somebody just basically what you're alluding to is they stole your property, they have they're keeping you from accessing your own property, and you have leased access. You have access to the property through this document. So yeah, it's absolutely binding, and I think it protects both parties in a way that, well, like I mentioned a second ago, you can't bring more than what we agreed to. You have to pay up front. There's no mention of logging in here. And, when you're a landowner, what you have to do for your land takes precedent. So if you're a farmer and you're, in the middle of October here in Indiana, you're going to harvest your corn. That's okay. We hunters want that. So this does not say you can't do those things. It just basically outlines the rules that you have set and that the hunters have agreed to, so that you want them to come back. As a landowner, you're a provider. As a hunter, you're a guest, and you want that relationship. Both of you want that relationship to continue. So I think the lease agreement protects both parties from anything that's agreed upon in this lease agreement. If it's contraindicated or if it's not happening, then you have a binding document to go to someone. Maybe it's just small claims court in your area to say, in the case of my equipment, I'd go to the sheriff's department first. And I would get the police department involved, and I would say, I have this agreement and we want these, taken care of. Typically, I think most landowners, if that was the case, and I've not heard of that, would say, okay, I don't have a problem. Just go get your stuff. And then you can work the rest of it out in court. But as hunters, you're protected against that with this document. On the back of a napkin, probably not so much.
So, along with that agreement then, let's talk about AHLA. What is hunting lease liability insurance? Like, what exactly is it?
Well, it does not guarantee you your lease money back if you don't kill a booner. Okay, and I've heard people say, "What's hunting insurance? A guarantee I'm going to kill something?" No. So it's real simple. What our liability coverage does is protects landowners and hunters from liability to each other. So what is liability? First of all, liability insurance never pays you. It pays on your behalf. If I were to damage, as a hunter, I damage something of the landowners. I drive an ATV over a sprinkler system. There's all kinds of things that could happen where I damage the landowner accidentally, right? Then this insurance policy will pay any damages that I'm found liable for on my behalf. Likewise, if a landowner damages hunters in any way, do you know what a cistern is? Have you seen an old well or cistern out in the woods? If I'm walking through my lease that I've got a contract on, and I've got my tree stand on my back and it's dark, maybe I'm walking in or walking out, and I step into an old cistern, I'm hurt. There's no doubt I've got a broken leg or worse. And so I was never told about that hazard. I had no idea that hazard was there. I believe the landowner is liable for my injuries. If that's the case, then this insurance policy would pay the hunter on behalf of the landowner. And it also pays for your defense. One last thing is, if I'm a hunter and I injure accidentally one of my buddies, another hunter, this will pay that injured hunter's fees, or it'll pay everything that the one hunter is liable for. So I fell out of a tree stand. We get this call a lot. Okay, who hung the tree stand? Well, I did. Okay, well then there is what's called a med pay, a $5,000 med pay, which basically is no fault here. We're gonna give you up to $5,000 just to go get right, to get healed while we figure this out. And they never really, our insurance carrier never gets that back. But I hurt myself. This policy doesn't kick in. It's only if I damage or hurt somebody else or some other equipment. We had somebody get shot accidentally, was putting away a gun. Went off and shot somebody out through a building and outside the building. Didn't kill him, but hurt him. And our policy covered those expenses. So, it's just, if you're a landowner and you've wrapped up that much time and passion in your land, it's up to 500 acres is $250, and you can rest easy that you're protected. And same for the hunters, you're protected as well.
Yeah, I haven't tried any of the others, but I was super impressed with how easy it was to work with your guys' system, and I mean the price and everything. It seemed very fair. I've recommended it to several people since, and obviously whoever watches this now, they're gonna they're going to get the plug and hopefully look into it. So one thing that I think I had wrong before we ended up getting that insurance policy, or maybe I had partially right. Isn't it true that certain states already have built-in protections for landowners if somebody's recreating on their property and they get hurt? But isn't it true that the difference is as soon as cash trades hands, that's where the game changes?
Yes, almost. I think it's every state now has an ordinance that protects landowners who are allowing access for free. But as soon as you pay, and by the way, the fixing the fence is paying. That sweat equity is considered compensation in most states. Now, since we go state by state, I'm not going to throw out a blanket comment, but yeah, any kind of compensation you give for access is considered payment. But yes, once you exchange money, then that's a different deal. And as a landowner, you owe a different level of safety and accountability to your guests. And even with that, the ordinances, if we also have a vacant land insurance, which is for those landowners who just share access, very similarly priced. But you want to leave it up to your state? I mean, for $250, and if I own land, I would have an insurance policy and not just trust that the state government will take care of it. That's my opinion. You can add up to 7 landowners to one policy. We will email you your certificates of insurance instantly, so you don't have to wait 3 or 4 weeks. If you get a landowner that says, yeah, you can get on the property, but I need this insurance certificate, we'll get it to you that day. And it's just become, and you get the use of the lease template. So there's a lot of pop-up apps and AI-created companies now that just haven't been in it for a long time. I don't think they're sincere. They're not as sincere as we are. And I can say that because we've been doing it for so long. But the last thing I'll say is if you're shopping for hunting lease insurance, check them all out, and then look at our reviews compared to the other companies. And I think the choice is pretty obvious.
All right, so we covered a lot there. Like I mentioned, we're going to link to that ebook and some other resources down in the description of this video. Really appreciate Sean coming on, and there's just a lot of really good information in there. So that's something you should take if you want to make that next step in actually getting into a lease agreement. Heed all of his advice. Those guys have been there and done that. So you definitely don't want to miss out on any of those important details as you get into a hunting lease. So stick around. We're going to have some more episodes coming down the pike here with this series. Make sure you subscribe to the HuntStand YouTube channel if you haven't already. Sign up for notifications, and we'll be coming back at you next week with a brand new episode.